Hey everyone, welcome to Limitless Radiocast, episode 34. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We'd like to thank True Tubes Tattoo Supply for sponsoring this show. All you tattooers out there, go out and get all your equipment, your inks, your needles, your pens, your PPE, anything you need for tattooing. True Tubes Tattoo Supply has you covered. Limitless at checkout. Get a 10% discount. Check them out. Remember, stay true. We'd also like to thank Magic City Brewing Company located in Akron, Ohio. For all your wonderfully great crafted beers, check out Magic City Brewing in Akron, Ohio. Remember to go out there and check out rollamongus.com also. For all your fight gear needs, they have fight shorts, gis, standard gis, lanky gis, rash guards, anything. Some t-shirts, sweatshirts, accessories. You want it, they got it. rollamongus.com, limitless20 at checkout for a 20% discount. Check them out. Also, go out there and check out battlebomb.com, limitless20 at checkout for a 20% discount. They have CBD and non-CBD rubs for those aches, pains, those muscle strains. Put it on, rub it in, gonna feel great. Trust me. Try it out a little bit, see what it does. I'm telling you right now, I use it all the time. It's gonna feel great. Remember, battlebomb.com, limitless20 at checkout. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today we're hanging out with a fellow local BJJ black belt, Mike Manchak. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Matt Waterhouse. He's located at Wooster, Ohio. I don't screw this up. And he has his own gym called Manchak Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Wooster, Ohio. So everybody out there that's local in that area, be sure to check him out. We'll get into all that stuff. We'll get into his background and everything else. Mike, thanks so much for joining us, hanging out with us. Chad and you have a little bit of history together in terms of knowing each other and seeing each other and all that. So thanks for being with us, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. It's great to be on.
Yeah. So how'd you feel? Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
I was just going to say, Terry wanted to know how long we knew each other. I said, we probably more know of each other than we haven't trained together, but obviously in the community, as long as we've been training, we obviously know who each other is. So, but we got to chat a little bit back last week for the tournament and stuff. So,
yeah.
It's kind of funny too. This is just a side note story. So my son plays baseball. He just turned 8 yesterday. And he played spring ball, and there was a guy that coached that said he knew a guy who trains at a school or owns the school, which could be you, Mike. He never told me your name in Wooster. And he was like, he bugs me all the time to come train. And for the life of me, I cannot remember his son's name, but I live in Jackson Township. And so his son played, and I was thinking, I wonder if that's the
gotta be right.
It's gotta be. So that's what I was.
As far as I know,
gotta be. And I'm sure you bug people, but you ask people, hey, come in and train. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's just funny because I was thinking, I bet that's him.
It's a small world.
Yeah,
it really is.
Which, we've talked about the BJJ community. It's, for me, I'm fairly new to it still, 19 months in from training with Chad, but I'm learning quickly that the community is super tight, and it also is growing rapidly versus maybe like West Coast, like when you guys started and, how you got into it and how Chad got into it. You guys are all these garage guys that like started in a garage with a mat, paying the neighbor kids $5 to do chokes on them.
It was either a garage or a basement, I feel. Yeah.
Is that how you started, Mike, too?
So I started, it's actually, so a lot of people, that get involved in, jiu-jitsu, it's like the path is usually, you start with jiu-jitsu, and then, even the bigger names, they'll start with jiu-jitsu, and then they like kind of, transition into mixed martial arts at some, it's like the natural progression for a lot of guys if they want a little more out of it. Mine was actually the exact opposite. I started at an MMA gym, and I did MMA for probably, I want to say like 8 months or so, like something like that. And then I transitioned to jiu-jitsu after that, just because it was just out of necessity. The gym ended up moving or closing or something like that. And then I found it that way. So yeah, it's just weird how it worked out. It wasn't like I was, I specifically sought out jiu-jitsu. I actually found an MMA gym. I guess we're just, jump right into it. I found an MMA gym. I was going to school actually in North Canton, and I found there was an MMA gym right out there. So I was like, man, it was like the Ultimate Fighter was going on and stuff like that. And I loved it. I love watching UFC. I was like, I got to get in on that. And then, like I said, they ended up closing up shop, and we did a little bit of everything in there. They had grappling, striking. And then I found Eduardo on just at like a Google search, and then, swallowed my pride and headed in there. And I guess the rest is history,
That's pretty awesome though, because a lot of people don't start that way. Like you said, like it's not that it's backwards. You just were introduced to MMA first. Mm-hmm. You loved it. You had a passion for it. There just happened to be a school that you could go to it, and then it transitioned into, jiu-jitsu and like where you are now. Yeah. So that's awesome. That's very cool. Where'd you go to school here in North Carolina?
I was going to Akron U. I transferred to Stark State.
Nice.
And then I went there for a while, and jiu-jitsu outlasted my college career. So, that's all for the best, to be honest with you. It worked out great. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a U of A and Stark State as well. Went to both schools. Yeah. That's very cool. Did you wrestle or anything in school in high school?
No, I didn't. It's funny because, like a lot of schools around here, I mean, we're kind of out in the, in the country. Sure. I mean, we're not in the country, but we're in Wayne County. Right. We're in Wooster. It's like the big hub, but, like everybody wrestles out here. Like every other person that walks through the door, is a former wrestler. Yeah. And a lot of my best guys are really accomplished wrestlers. But not me myself. I wrestled in in middle school, which for, some people that's like says something, but it doesn't really mean anything around here. So I never really, and I think, for the longest time, I think being a coach now and instructing a lot of wrestlers, I mean, and Chad, too, like wrestlers bring in a lot of bad habits that, get them in a lot of trouble in jiu-jitsu. They obviously bring in a lot of good habits. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, if you can deprogram them, they're great. But if you can't, it's a mess.
It can be. Yeah.
I wonder if the less amount of years of like being in wrestling helps too. Like for me,
for sure.
Like I have a couple years of middle school wrestling, and it still it came back to me when I started jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I've talked about this before, but I didn't have those habits, you know what I mean? Like those habits that are ingrained in you for years. And if you have a high level wrestler, that's super hard. Like doesn't make them bad though.
No, absolutely.
Their takedowns are very good. Double leg, single leg, all that. It's all good.
Unsweepable.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Their base is super strong.
Yeah.
That was the first thing my like very first couple days there at East Coast, someone went to sweep me and they couldn't do it. And it was like, did you wrestle? And I was like 30 years ago, man, but that base is still there, baby.
Yeah. It makes such a huge difference. I mean, in some of those, some of the departments that, fighting off your back, that's a very foreign concept to a lot of those guys. But some of my, like I said, not some of my best students for the most part, have a wrestling background, and I think it's the individuals that can take that and add to it, the ones that are really students of the game. It's a deadly combination.
Yeah.
It really
glad they're on my team.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. Just got to make sure they wear that gi a lot, right?
Yes. Slow them right down. Put them in the quicksand
real quick. We had right after COVID last year, we had a kid come in from Mount Union, and he was a heavyweight, 240. I think he placed like 7th in the nation, the previous year, and he was ridiculous. Like,
yes,
just like ripping up people. Yeah. Like, hey, that guy has to go to work tomorrow. He's in his 40s. Be careful. Like, yeah. It's just a gear, and wrestling at that, Mount Union's what, D3. I mean, that's. He's 22 and only rolled with rolled with other athletes. Like, it's just it's a gear that he couldn't slow down. He ended up going back to Mount Union for a while, but it was fun while it lasted, I guess.
I think it's important too. I always, when I opened up my school, I was always, starting from like basically nothing. Like I didn't inherit any students from other schools. I mean, I eventually did over time, but I mean, I just had a group of guys in, you know, t-shirts and workout shorts. And it was like, oh man, this is like, you know, you're really molding them from nothing. I'm not really inheriting anything. There was really nobody to help at that point. It was literally me, and a lot of trial and error and a lot of things. I mean, you learn a lot about yourself instructing, because I was good, but teaching is a whole different animal. You know, you can train yourself and you can spend, you know, like I mean, I still do, but you can spend hours, you know, watching film and trying to game plan, and but trying to take people that are, you know, a lot of these people aren't athletes. A lot of them are hobbyists. A lot of them are a little bit older. Yeah. Trying to take those people and get them ready for, you know, whoever's walking through that door, whether it be, you know, a collegiate wrestler, you know, any tough guy off the street. And it was, I guess my point is, it was good having, you know, like I said, the wrestling base around here is just crazy. Everybody can wrestle. Everybody knows a double leg. Everybody knows how to sprawl. Nobody's going to get swept. So it's like, it was really just like it still is. It's a nice, it keeps you humble, and it keeps you very realistic of your skill set.
For sure.
And I think I never try to, like, you know, I mean, I try to keep people safe for sure. Like, I don't want anybody getting hurt, and that's like paramount, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's like you want that realism, you know, you want to make sure your jiu-jitsu actually works, and and don't want to water down too much. And that's that was that was definitely you know, it was an eye-opening experience. Like, wow, you can't just teach moves. You got to give them something really tangible that they can use in these situations. So
did you change any of your techniques doing that? Like when you would teach them because you knew they were strong wrestlers, so would you mix up some stuff?
Yeah. And well, I learned a lot about, you know, because in most gyms, it's like, there's like a natural hierarchy in gyms, right? You have a couple, maybe like blue belt, purple belt, like kind of gym sentinels or enforcers. You know, if somebody's getting a little too rambunctious, she's just like, yeah, go roll with so-and-so, you know, and it usually like settles itself out. Where for me, I was the only one that knew any jiu-jitsu. So if any knuckleheads came in, it was just like, okay, you know. And then I think it was kind of good for my students to some, you know, because then they believed actually what I was saying.
Yeah. Then, I mean, you were able to sell your product like live. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And being a little smaller too. I mean, compared to most people that walk through the doors, I mean, it's like, and you know how it is, Chad. I mean, you're lucky to get anybody under 200 pounds. And if you do, it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? You're a bit of an anomaly, you know? But even more so they would come in and then they would roll with me, and it was like, oh, okay, you know, this actually works. And it was, you know, it's a very humbling experience. And it's like, you just had to be really honest with yourself about what you're teaching. And, you know, especially nowadays with all the, with social media and YouTube and stuff like that, like everybody's showing a different variation of an arm bar, and everybody's showing a different, you know, sweep from some exotic guard. And it's like, are they really going to work? Is it going to work? You know what I mean? Can you make it work? And yeah, it was, I'm really glad it happened that way. You know what I mean? Because it forced me to be like this, you know, I'm telling these guys this grip works, and like, okay, does it really work? Or try it on that guy that just walked in, you know what I mean? Yeah. So
that is very cool. Like, and Chad and I roll, and I'm 220, and you know Chad's size, he's 150. Mm-hmm. And he's cross-faced me before from top, like no problem, like nice tripod sweep come up, got to my side, cross-face. And I always tell people all the time, I'm like, if you don't think like certain stuff works, I'm like, look at me. I'm 220. I'm a bigger guy. I'm not heavy. I'm strong, but Chad turned me over and flattened me out, no problem. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, it works all the time if we have newer people. I mean, everyone that's been there knows that, and it's phenomenal. And it's also exciting too, to be like, point that out, like, like, hey, that works. Except when it's happening to you and you go, what the heck, man? Like, you're 150 pounds. Get off me. No, I'm just kidding.
But again, we've said it many times, people don't know what they don't know. Right. Until you put yourself out there, man. And I think for me, being smaller, Mike, you too, even at how long we've been training and at our current rank, that true test is that brand new 200-pound white belt that walks in your door, right? I want to roll good with other black belts and brown belts and all that, but at the end of the day, that's not who I'm going to get in a confrontation with possibly in the street. It's going to be that 200-pound jacked up dude, and we got to see what we can do.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good, and I think it's good to kind of, I mean, even as a black belt, to kind of subject yourself to that a little every now and then, and it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like you gotta be honest with yourself, and it keeps you honest putting yourself in those types of situations, because you're exactly right. Like, I think you get to a certain rank in jiu-jitsu, and you see it in so many people where, if all you roll with it are, blue belts that have, in some regard, they have a mental block against you. You know what I mean? You're going to beat them before you even slap hands. The look is going to be different than somebody that walks in and says, "Oh, what is this, jiu-jitsu?" You know what I mean? Well, I played football all my life, or I wrestled all my life, and let's see if this really works,
Sure.
And that's obviously the more your gym grows and stuff like that. Sometimes they don't even have to get to me to understand that, but it's good. I mean, I think that's an important part of it. It's important, because I always, like, when I teach, my jujitsu, I mean, I'm obviously really technical. I'm a smaller guy. I think anybody that makes it to black belt, and I've said this like to many of my guys, but anybody that makes it to black belt that's under like 175 pounds, like, that's somebody to really like to take a look at what they're doing, because I mean, it's easy to say like, oh, they're smaller, so they're going to have a lot of technique. But if you really like comprehend it, like, this is a person that's, been probably the smallest person in the room for, a decade.
Sure.
And they've, gotten crushed for a decade. And you know what I mean? It's like, a lot of people can't take that grind when they're the bigger person in the room. Like, if you add in, always being 50 pounds under somebody, it's a lot, and I'm not just trying to like, toot my own horn and say, oh, I'm little, so I'm really technical, but there's definitely a grind to it. You know what I mean? It's like all those injuries that most people have, and then some, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I think there's an asterisk to add there too, if you did not wrestle, because that's huge, right? Mm-hmm. Being smaller and not wrestling is, man, I was on my back forever when I started jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Like, I'm small now. I'm 150, 148, 150. When I started jiu-jitsu, I was 128 pounds, 130 pounds. Yeah. So it was rough, man. And it wasn't, I feel, I don't know who I heard say this in another podcast, but we take care of our new people now, right? Like, hey, make sure you tap, make sure you do this. This is how you do this. When we started, it wasn't like that. I remember I got heel hooked one of my first classes, and nobody said, hey, you might want to tap, So yeah, there's a lot of asterisks.
Your knee's going to explode soon.
Yeah. So
it was just to figure it out. I think that's a sign of the times as well, too. Yeah. Because I know when I first started, I mean, obviously, like, I consider my jiu-jitsu career after, my little MMA stint, but I don't put too much into that. But, when I was training at Eduardo's, I mean, it was just, he would just beat the crap out of you. I mean, it was just really, that was, it was old school Brazilian style, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I mean, it was like, there was no flow rolls. There was no warm up, there was no warm up rolls or anything like that. We did a warm up, but like when you rolled with him, like, if you got anything on him, it was like, did somebody see that? Did anybody see that?
Yeah.
I know it happened. I really know it happened, but am I dreaming here?
Right.
I went up there a handful of times, got to roll with him a few times. It was, I've told people before, it was the most, even to this day, probably the most off balance I ever felt. You know what I mean? With spider guard, and I just never had traction on the floor, connection with the floor, Mm-hmm. Granted, I was a white belt, but not that it would matter, but it was just, it felt so odd.
Oh, yeah.
He was something else.
He really was. I mean, Eduardo is, I mean, to this day, like you said, Chad, I mean, I obviously trained with them a lot. You know, I was with Eduardo, I guess a little bit of my history. I trained with Eduardo up until I was a purple belt. And I got my blue belt from him. And then it was a co-promotion to my purple belt, him and Matt Waterhouse.
Oh, nice.
But some of the worst beatings I ever got were from him. And it was just, and I try to, you know, it's like, as a black belt, you want that magic, you know what I mean? You want like somebody to like to be, and I always try to think of it in my head. I tell guys to, you know, try to emulate somebody, like pick your jiu-jitsu hero or like somebody like that. And you know, who I try to be on the mats is like, just like a mixture of like, my jiu-jitsu heroes, plus like Eduardo, plus Matt, and everybody rolled up in between. But it's like, Eduardo was especially, I mean, he was, somebody described it one time. He's everywhere and nowhere all at the same time.
Wow.
And
nice.
that was
that's a good expression.
And that was all I love that phrase. And I always try to be like that. Like, I want people to think that about me when I roll, you know?
Well, I will say this, man, from your super fight, we were talking about it this past week in the gym, because people were like, hey, did you guys see that super fight? And I watched it. Fortunately, you know, it was recorded on Facebook Live. So I was able to watch it. And instantly I was like, I could tell, even being young in my journey, was like your technical, like where you place hands and where you do certain things. And I was like, man, and someone in the gym was like, did anyone watch that super fight? Like that guy. And I was like, Mike. And they're like, yeah. I was like, they were like, that guy's super technical. You could just tell. And I was like, yeah, you could tell. Like, that's how his jiu-jitsu is, man. Like, he's a technical professional at doing what you do. And I respect that. It's just kind of my background. I'm an engineer by nature. That's what my job is. So I tend to be that way. I ask Chad too many questions about being technical, like certain things. So there's always an ongoing joke in the gym of Terry asking too many questions. But I am 44 years old. I'm old, man. My brain doesn't work that well anymore. So I can use that as an excuse too. I'm like, you young guys beat me up. What the heck?
Well, I appreciate that, man. That was a lot of fun. I mean, I can't thank you enough for inviting me out for something like that. It was really cool to get in the mix like that.
Has it been a while since you competed? Like even from that, just from a small wise, or?
Yeah, I think the last time I competed was Fight to Win.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It was like 2 years ago or so. It's tough. I mean, it's tough for me because before, I mean, we do now, we have a path to get it, to get to the IBJJF, but it was kind of, I mean, there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through to get everything, you know, lined up. And we finally got it as of this year. I'm going to the Master Worlds here in November.
Awesome, man.
So, but yeah, I mean, being a little smaller and signing up for some of these tournaments, it's, you know, there's usually like one other black belt there, and it's just like, how much do they weigh? Like, I don't know. We'll find out when we get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
locally is tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough. Yeah. Wait till you get old. And wait till you're, I just turned 46 on last couple Wednesdays ago. So being older, smaller, and a black belt is really tough.
Good luck, right? Trying to get a match set up or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I you know, to speak to the technical side, I mean, people have always said that about my jiu-jitsu, and I've always tried to, it's naturally just like been, you know, it's like how I express the jiu-jitsu. I'm trying to get out there. And I always thought, like, not coming from like, you know, I was never a super athlete or anything like that. I did track in high school. I mean, I played football. Like, I mean, I wasn't big enough to do anything with it in football, but, I always thought to myself, you know, I thought of jiu-jitsu as sort of like it's a game, you know, and I don't have to be necessarily as good of an athlete as these people, but like we're doing jiu-jitsu, you know, you got to be good at jiu-jitsu. It's almost like my jiu-jitsu versus your jiu-jitsu, not so much me versus you. And the more I framed it like that, I think the more technical I got. And then, you know, there's always an answer when you think of things in a technical sense. There's always there's always an answer to that question, not just like, oh, that guy's just better than me. It's just like, no, which part, you know what I mean? Where did he beat you? Which part did he beat you with? And then you have a lot of tangible things you can work on. And I think, you know, the more people would kind of frame their jiu-jitsu that way, like, you know, you could excel a lot faster.
Yeah, really breaking it down. That's the beauty of it. Like, to piggyback off that. And that's how I've tried to explain it to people that go, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, I'm like, you have no idea. Like, it's a game within it, a game itself. Like, it's so, I love it. And I'm finally starting to think that way more in my roles and just training wise of, you know, going, okay, things are starting to slow down, you know, for me. I'm starting to see things and I want certain things to happen, or in my head, I'm like, oh, I want to do this. So I know I need to do this, this, and this before I can get there. And that is awesome. And when you have that aha moment, when you know, even though I haven't done it for a long time, but the way my brain thinks, it's like, okay, this is cool. Except it does get me in trouble because then I'm too slow. So I'm like, I need to do this. And then Chad's always like, yeah, I can tell your brain's just thinking. I was like, I know. Oh, yeah. And it sucks because I need to just not think and just do it.
Yeah. I can see the wheels turning. Like, it's usually, you know, I play on my back a lot or on my butt a lot, right? And I can see Terry like wanting to, like, you know, step in the pocket, X pass, like, just do it. Do it. Don't wait, because the longer you wait, the more chances it's probably not going to happen, because I'm going to start moving on. Yeah,
that's why I went for the weave right away as soon as I stepped in the other day, and just went for the leg weave. And because I was like, he tells me this every time. It's like, just don't think, just do it. Like, you know, the muscle memory already, your body knows it. And when I did step in and did it, I was kind of stopped and was like, holy crap, like that just worked like that. And it was to my bad side. Like, it wasn't to my good side. It was to my bad side, because Chad always makes me go to my bad side.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, just that, I mean, exactly what you're talking about, that, you know, anytime I'm instructing someone, especially in competition, you know, it's that statement you just said. It's like, trust the jiu-jitsu. It's going to work. Even, you know, you're going to second guess. You're like, they see it coming. I'm setting this up. And it's like, I always tell people when I'm instructing, I'm like the technical jiu-jitsu works. It's you that's messing it. You know, it's your head. It's you doubting these things, and you making adjustments like, oh, I'll just do a little bit of this. It's almost like if you're cooking something and the last minute you decided it needed way more salt. Like, that's not enough, you know?
Sure.
It's like these are all, you know, the years and years and years, and you can always add your own spin to them.
Sure.
And I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. It's, you know, my jiu-jitsu is not going to look like Chad's. Yours isn't going to look like mine. It's
sure. Right.
It's everybody has it. You know, I think that's the art side of the martial art. You know, it's your own personal expression of what you see as the best, you know, your best version of this for you. But yeah, and competition, you know, competing, it puts that even more so. You know, you have to trust the techniques, and you have to know you drilled it enough to make it like second nature. You know, it's like, you want that X pass, like you said, you want it to be almost like that's your operating system. You know, you can make decisions while this is running in the background. While, you know, he puts a De La Riva hook, I'm just smashing it right off the bat. I'm coming back across. I'm not letting this happen. My body's doing that, but my mind's thinking, you know, a couple steps ahead. And you know, when you roll with somebody that's like a lot better than you, and they feel like they're 3 or 4 steps ahead of you, they literally are. You know what I mean? They're dealing with what you're throwing at them, with muscle memory. They're not thinking about these movements, and you shouldn't, to be honest with you. You know, when you're competing, I tell guys, it's like the corniest analogy ever, but it's like the little kids when they make like the macaroni art, you know, and they put the glue on and they put all the macaroni on there, and then they flip it over and everything falls off, and then just a couple of things are sticking. Like, that's your jiu-jitsu in a tournament. It's like, I have all this jiu-jitsu that I thought worked, and then you flip it upside down, and it's just like, oh, there's nothing on here. You know what I mean? There's only a couple of things that stick, and yeah, I mean, you know, but for better or worse, you'll find that out a lot of times, you know.
And that's where that was my struggle just recently. Not that it's still not, but that was my thing. I was like, that should be there. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I know how to do that, but I wasn't getting there. And I would get frustrated with myself because I'm like, you're better than that. Just relax, calm down, and just go. And I was actually talking to a couple of our upper belts this past week, and I'm like, it does slow down, right? They're like, well, it does, but it doesn't. Like, it depends on who you're rolling with. Like, you just have to be able to go to that. And Chad's always telling me, you know, he's like, don't go their pace because you're older. You know, if I roll with a younger guy or whatever, you know, and everyone's obviously awesome. Anyone I've ever been around in jiu-jitsu has been fantastic. Great. Everyone I've met through the podcast, everyone I've rolled with or got to train with, even seminars or whatever. But I still start, you know, when you walk away from the mat, you start questioning things. And I'm like, not that we'll ever be good at this, but it's like, is this going to slow down for me? Like, will this slow down to where I just relax and maybe not fight it so much? Because now I feel like I fight it sometimes.
And it does. That's when it's funny you said that about things slowing down. They absolutely do slow down a lot. I think that's one of the biggest things I see, you know, when I see a guy getting ready to transition to a blue belt from a white belt, like the pace of the roll, are they able to almost, I mean, depending on who they're rolling with, right?
Sure.
But how's the pace? Can they control the pace? Can they pick it up? And then more importantly, can they slow it down? Because I mean, jiu-jitsu, one of the most important parts is being able to, like you said, slow it down. Can you slow it down? You know, can you change the pace of the roll under your terms, not just, you know, under their trying to match. Everybody's trying to match each other's pace, especially a white belt. White belt is just the most frantic thing ever. And then blue belt slows down a little bit more. And I have some really technical guys that, you know, they'll go compete and, you know, it'll just be a little bit of a wash for them. And I think the more technical you are, the better your jiu-jitsu works against higher level guys.
Sure. Okay.
Where it's just like the kind of, you know, the athletes that'll come in that are a little bit of meathead, they'll get ahead a lot faster, but then their jiu-jitsu starts falling off at the high levels. Where, you know, it's almost like the answers to the questions that they're proposing, you know, in the jiu-jitsu environment are, they're not as complex and there's nothing after them. So it's an interesting sport to say the least.
Did you fight at all with MMA, or did you just train MMA?
We did a smoker, I think they called them. It's like a couple gyms got together and it was wild. I mean, there was no reason. We were wearing headgear. I mean, it was just like, it was crazy. I mean, it was just like a fight. It was like a fight club type of thing. It was kind of strange, but no, nothing like that. No sanctioned fights or anything like that.
Okay. I was just curious, and I'm sure it helped, like, you know, going in with Eduardo, like, being beat up, like for you, you're like, well, I have a little bit, not technically, but it's like, I kind of just went through this whole 8-month gamut of kind of getting beat up, beating up other people, you know what I mean, in an MMA world. So I'm sure that helped a little bit, like, to transition into jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
there wasn't so much of a shock of like, you know, the physicality of it.
Sure.
I guess when I went in there, but the level was just, it wasn't even close. I remember walking into Eduardo's and being like, well, you know, I got a little bit of a background. I bet I could at least hang with a purple belt. Like I had a chance, and I got tapped by a white belt like my first day, like in multiple times. And, you know, it was just, you know, it was a very humbling experience going from a gym that was, you know, like an MMA gym to a specialized Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. And, the level is just completely different, you know. I mean, we know that because we train at those places, but you know, I think a lot of people, like you said, you don't really know what you don't know beforehand.
Yeah, true. Very true. Just everyone out there listening, walk into a jiu-jitsu gym because it will change your life, and it will.
It will.
I mean, there's so many stories. Obviously, we talk to so many people, Mike, and it's like, it's kind of crucial. That's one thing we want to do with the podcast is like give that intuition to people, like give that information. Like, look, just because we do this doesn't make you like some tough guy. I mean, you learn how to do it in the right way, but it keeps you the most humble and the most respectful, and you care about people and you're respectful to people. So everyone out there listening, I've said it a million times and I'll say it again. Go find a BJJ gym and get yourself ingrained in there, because you're going to find a new family of people that care about what you're doing and how you are. So
it's so true. It's so nice seeing that, our secret's getting out, and it's hitting the mainstream with Jocko and Joe Rogan and those guys, gassing up jiu-jitsu every chance they get. I've gotten so many students from listening to, they're like, oh, I listened to Jocko and he can't shut up about jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, well, if you stick around, you won't either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
But you're right. They, like, a lot of people don't understand. I think of it almost like a bell curve where, when you start at white belt, you don't know what you don't know. So you come in with a head full of steam, and then you're just getting tapped left and right. But in your head, you're like, you don't really comprehend why you're getting tapped or why you're losing these positions. And you think you almost had something, I just listened to this, Lex Freeman had Travis Stevens on, and he was talking about rolling with, or like training, judo, but he was training with smaller people or people not as good as him, and he was saying he could give people false hope with just grips. They think they have more than, but they never had a chance. And I think at white belt there is, like I said, you don't know what you don't know, right. So you're not completely comprehending how much trouble you're in these positions. So like I said, it's like a bell curve. So you don't know what you don't know. Then once you get to like blue belt, purple belt, you start to understand what you don't know. And it's an eye-opening experience, to say the least. You start understanding how much trouble you are in some of these positions. And that's why I think, like, as somebody that's been doing this for so long, and as a black belt, some of the roles I have with like blue belts are like, I'll beat them worse than any white belt, just because they give you complete jiu-jitsu looks in defensive cycles. And as a black belt, you can exploit those. So it looks even worse. So it's like, you'll beat a blue belt way worse than you beat a white belt, because the white belts, they don't generally know they don't know all the escapes. They don't know where to position their body in the right way. But then, I guess, to finish the thought, so you get to the middle of that, then on the other side of that, at the highest levels, it's almost like you don't know what you know. You'll just be doing things will, and Chad, you know how this is, where people ask you about a position and then you've never seen the position in your life, and you're just like, well, show it to me. And you're like, well, you just connect this, and then like, well, there you go. You know what I mean? And, I think to a detriment a little bit nowadays, because I think, everybody and their brother has a DVD set out that's, 5 hours long on some random topic, you know what I mean? Right. Some random position or guard. And you're like, I don't know if he's actually ever used that or will use it, but, he got a big deal from BJJ Fanatics. So there you go.
Right. Yeah.
Terry's talking about how he always asks questions, and I'll teach something and he'll say, hey, why do you put your hand there? I'm like, do I put my hand there? So I'll have to go back and like, I do put my hand there.
Yeah. So I'll be like, record this.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
So
I do that all the time. People ask, they're like, what were you doing with the other hand there? And I'm like, well, let me get into the position. What was I doing in that position? Because you focus, when you're instructing, you're focusing on, what you're perceiving as the most important parts of the movement. And, I think it's just a natural, I mean, if you're honest with yourself as an instructor, sometimes you miss the mark as far as like the most important parts of the movement. Like, you're teaching the movement. And then, I always I'm very critical of myself when I go around and watch everybody doing it. And I'm like, I'm missing something. I didn't teach some right part of that. If everybody's like failing at a certain position, I'll look around, and then usually, luckily, over the years, my students are like you said, you're always asking questions. I always encourage everybody to ask questions, challenge me a little bit when it comes to some of this stuff. Not to the point where we're getting in this feedback loop of like, well, what do you do when I do this? And then what do you do when I do this? When then do this? And then we're like way down there. Yeah. You know what I mean? We spend the whole class talking about one position. We don't even know, where we started. But it is good. And those questions are so beneficial as an instructor to get feedback on your own instruction and really help everybody, you know, elevate what they're trying to learn here. Cause that's what I always, you know, everybody's going to digest this, you know, mentally in a different way. They're all gonna, when I say hip, maybe hip doesn't mean hip to you. Maybe it means like plant your foot and move your butt this way. Or, you know, when I say pull your knee up, maybe to you that means leg. It sounds weird, but it's just, especially brand new people. Like, I've taught how to shrimp like probably 1 million different ways to, you know, a bunch of different people. Yeah. And they just all, they all approach it different. Like something that works for this person is not going to work for this person.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll get into depending if somebody's having trouble, like say with a grip, I'll actually grab their hand and say, hey, put it this way instead of talking through it. I saw a video years ago with Rorion Gracie at the Gracie Academy. There's a room full of people. He blindfolded somebody and he's like, tell them how to get to the back door or whatever. So people are talking to him, go this way, turn right. They all get done. Rorion grabs up, takes his hand and walks him to the door. Instead of, you know, you got to think like the easy way, take their hand, show them the grip, you know, kind of little stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what I'll do in the gym, even like when I call Chad over, you know, raise my hand, coach, whatever, like do that to me, like what you just did there. And then I'm watching like a hand or want me to do it. And I'm like, here. He's like, yeah, no, move. You want to move your hand a little bit up or no, it doesn't matter. You're okay. You know, keep your hand kind of loose or whatever in this position, but just have a good grip or turn your knuckles or whatever, turn wrist. I'm like, okay, cool. That's all I needed. Like I typically, I'll ask questions when he's instructing, but I don't typically ask those questions because I know like people are going to be like, what? Why does that matter? I'm like, well, it does to me.
Yeah. Well, you get into that what if, like Mike said, that cycle of like, man, this is a whole nother class.
Right.
On that what if.
Those are the best. Chad's like, that's jujitsu. And then he walks away.
Yeah.
With a mic drop.
Well, you know, we did that pass the other day. We worked the Sao Paulo pass, you know, it's people have different variations of it. And they're like, well, could this happen? Yeah, sure. It could. I mean, so many things can happen by just being off a little bit. And again, that's, you know, I'm not a drill sergeant when I teach, like, I'm not going to be yelling at you, keep drilling, but the more you drill it, the better you're going to be at it.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what makes this, I think this what makes this, it's what separates jiu-jitsu from so many other martial arts where, I mean, obviously there's that realism where it's like the Sao Paulo pass is a perfect example of that. Like there are a number of problems, or not problems, but there are a number of things that can go wrong with that pass. So people will try to ask you, you know, just like you said, like, well, could they do this? Could they triangle? Yeah, all that stuff can happen. I mean, no jiu-jitsu move is 100%. There's always, you know, if we were rolling in slow motion and you just broke down they could have did this, they could have did that, they could have got you there. But that's the game. That's the rub. You know what I mean? There's always openings everywhere. And that's why there's not just one sweep. Or, you know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah. You have a whole arsenal of different techniques you can use. So
if there was, it wouldn't take you years to keep crafting it. Cause I will never, ever say to be an expert. Cause I believe at this point that no BJJ instructor in the entire world will ever claim to be an expert. They will claim to be a professional maybe, but not an expert at the art, because as you guys know, you guys you're both black belts, and it's forever learning. You're forever getting something, some kind of knowledge or some little thing. It's like, a little bit of a movement here or something. So
yeah, I just had that. We went out to get some ice cream last night, and there was a fireman that had been in the gym a couple times getting ice cream with somebody. He's like, hey, that guy's a jiu-jitsu master. I'm like, listen, there's no master. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
You know, say you know, I appreciate what you're trying to say, but don't say that.
I've never gravitated towards a lot of the formalities in jiu-jitsu, like for whatever reason. And I don't discount any gym that, you know, kind of does gravitate towards that stuff, because, you know, for some people, I think I see it most in people that have come from other martial arts, where it's the norm for them. You know what I mean? To address your instructor as, sensei, as professor,
right.
as, I mean, or bowing before you step on the mats, things like that. At my academy, I think, coming just straight into jiu-jitsu, it's a lot more Brazilian than it is, the jiu-jitsu side, where we're super informal. Like, people just call me Mike or, coach sometimes,
Coach. Sure,
definitely nobody. It's so funny. We'll go somewhere. So a friend of mine opened up a school and we all went, to kind of, grand opening. And he was referring to me as Professor Manchak. And my guys are there just like cracking up. They're like, he called you professor. And I'm like, see, some places I get respect, you guys. Not
When we first started the podcast and started getting, guests lined up to come on and stuff, I asked Chad that. I'm like, do I call everybody just by their first name, or do I say professor? Because obviously there's a lot of podcasts out there that's in our genre and does this, and they do say professor. And Chad's like, no, he's like, unless they specifically tell you, he was like, it's okay just to call
which I doubt they will.
Right. So I was like, cool. So I've kind of just gone from that until I get yelled at. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. Tell me, man. Just tell me. No word. I'm sorry. No disrespect.
Yeah.
How long have you had your gym, Mike?
So we've been open, it'll be 6 years this year.
Oh, nice.
So time flies. I mean, we went from just a little tiny room in the back of it's a strength and conditioning facility.
Okay.
And we rent out basically half the building. And we've done a bunch of renovations and stuff like that over the last year. So nice. It's nice. It's really nice. I mean, we can all start from our feet now. It's just, it's so nice to have this space. And I'm sure Chad could speak on this, but when it comes to training, you can never have enough mat space. You can never have enough room. It always fills up, and the more you have, and I get it. My little pet peeve is every meme that's shared, in the jiu-jitsu community nowadays is always about, guard pulling and not doing takedowns. And it's just but to those people, I would always say, if you ever have a problem with that, you've never owned a gym, and you've never had to deal with, 30 people showing up and everybody being shoulder to shoulder. And then what? You know what I mean? You got to start somewhere. How are all these people going to do? Everybody going to stand up? That's why wrestling rooms are so gigantic. If you ever go in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mats for everywhere. For miles. Yeah.
One guy's got a 20 by 20 spot over there by himself, just him and another training partner. And you're like that guy's way out there, man. But they're going to be going at it, double legging and trying to pick each other up and everything else.
so much space, and after having all the wrestlers I've had in there, it's just we train a lot of, I train from my feet a lot, and nice. It's funny. That's when I did that super fight, that was one of the things in my head. Cause I train with so many wrestlers, and I told myself, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get it. I got to get a takedown right off the rip. I was like, I got it. These guys
got to go right for it.
Everything's I'm a guard player. I'm not playing guard at all this fight.
You did too. And it was sweet entry. And then
ankle pick.
Yeah. I was going to say that ankle pick is,
thanks.
That's a great pick. A while ago, actually in Nogi, Pete, Pete, that's at our gym.
I don't know if he's ever met Pete.
Oh, you've never met Pat. Okay.
I know of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously very good wrestling background in high school and whatnot. And that was one of the first things, when he found out that I wrestled, we happened to graduate at the same time, different schools and stuff. But he's like, oh yeah, man, just that same thing, but just control that head, pull that head down and just reach down, just real quick and reach down and pull that. And I was like, ooh, this is nice. And then,
oh yeah,
now I like it if I'm standing up. Other than that, if it's two white belts in a China shop, then I just pull guard.
Yeah. Save everybody some time, right?
Yes,
save some time.
Right. Because usually Chad will be like, just pull guard.
Yeah.
Okay, coach.
It's funny. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I tell guys at tournaments, because white belts just grab and that's it for 5 minutes. I'm right. I'm at some point, maybe a minute, 2 minutes in, I'm going to tell you to pull guard. Like, did you come to do jiu-jitsu or are we going to dance? Like, you waste 5 minutes. You're like, all right.
It's so true. I teach. So we do a fundamentals class on Fridays, and last couple weeks we've been working on guard pulls from your feet.
Yeah.
And I'll have a room like full of wrestlers, and I'm teaching them how to pull guard. And it's like, listen, guys, it's an important concept to get used to, because like you said, Chad, what are you going to do? Are you just going to stand there? Are you going to fight for a takedown for that long? Or are you going to use some jujitsu? You only get 2 for that takedown.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with the rest of it? Because the end goal is to submit your opponent,
Sure,
and,
right.
And you have to find a way to get into, your jiu-jitsu exchange, whether it be pulling guard, whether it be, and I tell all my wrestlers, to master the art of butt wrestling. You know what I mean? You wrestle up off your butt, and it's a very, very powerful tool to get used to. And I will say, so back, when I started, kind of like, I would say like halfway through, or not halfway through, but a couple years into my jiu-jitsu career, it was like 2010-ish. And that was when like the 50-50 was just like plaguing, the lighter gi divisions. Okay. And everybody was double pulling, and it took years and years and years to see any kind of change. But I will say, like, you watch a lot of the competition nowadays, like if you watch the Pans just a couple weeks ago, all the featherweights were doing takedowns. Everybody was trying to pass. There were very few just like straight up double guard pulls. And I think that's like, I think it's a beautiful thing. Cause
for sure,
I'm to the point now in my jiu-jitsu where like, I love to, I pass more than I play guard. And it's just, for me, it's just so much fun to pass. I love passing. Like my jiu-jitsu heroes, the guys I'm trying to, all my guys already know who the guys are. It's it's Rafa Mendez, it's Gustavo Batista. It's the guys that are, even some of the newer guys like Andy Mirazaki from Atos. Like the passing, it's almost come full circle. You know what I mean? Where I think a lot of guys, the guards were so good. They used to be so good. Relative to the passing, that that's why guys would double pull. It was so much time, and it was so much effort to try to pass a guard like that for nothing. And it was so easy to get swept that they would just double pull, and then it would almost be the stalemate. And it was bad from a spectator, perspective, but
it's terrible.
But in a sport, and I'm empathetic though, because in a sport where there's hardly any money at those high levels, a lot of those guys aren't necessarily running a school or anything like that. They're literally just competitors. It's like you're like, not so much your legacy, but your means of making a living are based on, it doesn't matter if you won that world championship with an advantage from 50-50.
Right.
You're still a world champion. And then you can do a seminar tour, you can book at a cat, you can do a lot of stuff. But if you go out there on your sword and say like, oh, I'm gonna pass, then you lose. It's like, what are you gonna do?
Right.
And that's like kind of the high level ugly side of that. But it's good to see it coming back, with the passing is coming back. The passing and the takedown are coming back. It's weird. It's just like a big cycle, it just
you think the changing of like rules in terms of like rule set ADCC and IBJJF and fight to win, obviously everyone has their own set of rules. Do you think that helped a little bit, like to change jiu-jitsu basically?
I think it did. I think ADCC has been the it's always been the high water mark or the measuring stick for the highest level of the no-gi competition. But I think with the advent of a lot of the submission only tournaments that or the events that come out, I think it has pushed jiu-jitsu in a positive direction. And I think there's still a place for those. A lot of people say, I listen to a lot of podcasts. You listen to like a lot of the no-gi guys talk, like you listen to Gordon Ryan talk, and he's like, oh, gi jiu-jitsu will be dead in like 5 to 10 years. And it's just, that is not the case at all.
No,
it is not. I don't believe that for one bit, because jiu-jitsu is dominated not by the Gordon Ryans, not by the Gary Tonins, not by these guys who are professional athletes, right? It's dominated by the hobbyists. And if you've ever trained no-gi, for an extended period, that the injury rate in no-gi is drastically higher. And why is it higher? Because the pace is so much higher in no-gi, and it's very chaotic. And especially at like not an elite black belt level, that chaos isn't very controlled very well, right? So you're just scrambling, and those scramblings lead to injuries. And especially nowadays, where everybody thinks that you as a coach, if you're not showing them a heel hook on your first day, you're trying to hide the leg techniques from them. and in reality, it's a safety issue, right? And you know that, Chad. You're trying to protect your guys. And what the gi allows you to do is it allows you to train every day at a decent pace. It slows it down. It forces you to be technical. You can't just slip and slide and rip yourself out of these places. So there, in my opinion, I think there will always be a place for gi jiu-jitsu. Listen, show your rolls sold out every time you log in the website. So I don't think they're having trouble
going anywhere. Right.
So it's interesting. So I think there's a place for gi jiu-jitsu, the point-based gi jiu-jitsu, because it's fun and it's a rule set, you know what I mean? And I think there's a place for that sub only, and then everything in between, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, there's a place for someone in each spot across that. And I started obviously gi, and I'll just do no gi once in a while when I want to get an extra workout. I do not, I'm not very fluent in doing no gi. I like it. But I'll be more sore the day after doing no-gi because it is faster and it's a little hard, and I can't slow down because my grips are different. I mean, I have great grips, but geez, man, 2 minutes in, you're sweating, with a bunch of white belts. I mean, it's not happening. And things are harder to pull, because you give me an arm bar, but most likely I'm going to be able to slide out because I'm strong enough, unless you got it perfectly. And honestly, if it's two white belts going at it, neither one of us are really doing it. It's typically, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's all slipping and sliding, Mike, like you said, it's like I'm ripping the stuff apart, and sliding to another movement. I'll never forget when I first started no-gi, I was like, does the same stuff work? Do I do the same? Because I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I'm just going to kind of use a little bit of wrestling right here because I really don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I just kind of stuck with that and then learned as I went. But yeah, I can see there's a place for each person.
So much different. I talked to I don't know if it was I think it was at a Fight to Win. I ran into Dante Leone, and it was right before ADCC the last time when he got the invite or whatever. And he's like, luckily, I don't have to be good at jiu-jitsu. I have to be able to wrestle and defend footlocks. That's all I got to, obviously he's being funny. Obviously he's very good at jiu-jitsu, but that's true. Wrestle and footlocks if you can defend, right?
Yeah, I mean, the meta nowadays, I mean, if you don't have those two things and you're trying to compete at a high level, it used to be, if you don't have a good butterfly guard and a guillotine, and now it's like, if you don't have good wrestling and you don't know your leg locks inside and out, and not even just leg locks, if you don't know the most current iterations of the leg locks. Because they change at such a drastic rate. And I always try to stay on top of, I try to keep my finger on the pulse as much as possible. I mean, I'm always, I always have the newest DVD set. I'm always hip to whatever so-and-so's doing, whether it be Lachlan, whether it be Gordon, whether it be Danaher, any of those guys. You want to be up to speed with a lot of that stuff, because the meta has changed. I mean, it really has. And even especially nowadays at the highest level, you see that it's a natural divide. And to be honest with you, like, that's always the golden question, right? Like, can you just train no gi jiu-jitsu? Can you just train gi jiu-jitsu? I mean, can you do gi jiu-jitsu and then go compete at a high level no gi? I think nowadays, if you want to compete at the highest level, probably not. You probably have to invest, almost all your time and resources into no-gi. It's not really like it used to be.
Sure. Right.
I mean, I'm just talking at the highest level. Now, the average practitioner, you should do whatever you want to do. You should do what makes you want to get up and go train. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you're paying money to go train, and you should enjoy yourself when you're going there. I will say though, it's like I said, good luck staying healthy doing no-gi at a high level at a high pace all the time. It's really, it's difficult. And especially, and I'm not just talking going to train, and I don't want to discourage anybody. I mean, I love no-gi jiu-jitsu. We do it. But I think a lot of guys, they get in their head a lot of times where they'll do a little no-gi, and like you said, they'll slip out of things, and they'll rationalize it in their head that they're better at no-gi.
Yeah.
Where in reality, it's like, not really, that's not really the case.
Sure.
It's just, you're more exposed with the gi on, and you can't use your athleticism to get you out of bad situations.
Right. Which is always funny. Go ahead, Chad.
I just had a question. I've never asked this. I just thought of it, Mike. So if you had somebody that only trained no gi with you, would you rank them eventually?
Yes.
Would you?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna, to be honest with you. So like whenever this podcast actually goes live, so as of next week, we're going to have 2 dedicated no-gi days. We were doing it just the way the schedule worked out, because we were sharing like half the space, and I couldn't really get in there as much as I wanted to. But we were doing like an entire no-gi week per month. So it was split up that way. But now going forward, as of next week, we'll have Tuesday, Thursdays are just going to be straight no-gi. So I guess my point is, there is a potential for people that only come on those no-gi days. Now, would I prefer them to come on the gi? Absolutely. I would.
For sure.
You know what I mean? You'll get more out of your jiu-jitsu if you do that. But I understand. Look, I'm obviously a gi practitioner, and that's my love. And that's, kind of my main focus for years and years and years. And I think just because, there's no dedicated no-gi schools around here unless you go to 10th Planet or something like that. Yeah. But there's definitely a chance like a situation like that occurs. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm not going to shy away from anybody if that's what they want to do, if that's the path they want to take. It's interesting to me because it's almost like, if you don't adjust and you don't kind of like have that conversation in your head, like what if people only want to do no-gi in these situations? And it's like, you're gonna have to, I don't want to be a grumpy old jiu-jitsu guy and be like, you're gonna put that gi on, you know what I mean? They're like, well, Gordon Ryan he never put a gi on. Exactly. He never wore, so
you want to be progressive,
you gotta
too.
Adjust, you gotta keep up. Yeah, you gotta keep up with it.
Right. Just like you said, like you get the latest DVDs and all the information, and we're watching Fight to Win, and we're watching Who's Number One, couple Chad, 2 weeks ago, or was it a week ago? It was 2 weeks ago. When Who's Number One is all weekend, whole tournament. And then, Sunday night, it was the finals and stuff like that. And, like you watch that and well, if younger people who are getting involved in jiu-jitsu, they're probably watching a lot of YouTube stuff that's no-gi and a lot of other stuff out there that, DVDs and that's all no-gi stuff. So yeah, there's going to be young women and men and kids or whatever that are going to be like, I just want to do that. I just want to do.
I've had more people, to be honest with you, I've had more people, and it's usually they'll come in and they'll say they like no gi better, right? And then the more they train in the gi, they'll start to get better at the gi, and they realize like all the options you have with the gi on, and I think that to me that's what makes the gi fun. It's all. I have so many more attacking options. I think it's a smaller guy that it really helps too. Like you can really slow down a roll, especially somebody that's big and rambunctious. Now, obviously, like a guy like Lachlan at 80cc last year when he entered the absolute and he weighs like 160, 170 pounds and he's just gutting the division. Yeah. But if you look at how he did it, you can't do that to the big rambunctious white belts. I can't go K-guard to like a 50-50, an inside heel hook on these, it just like it's bad for business. You get one trip through the door, then one trip out. It's like, oh geez, testing out my insurance policy right off the bat. But I think at the highest level, it just the submissions get a little more dire and a little more, a little like there's a little more serious, especially in no gi. And gi, you can slow things down. You know what I mean? You can cook them a little bit, and then take them out slow, and you know what I mean, and make that adjustment on the fly, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. I'll text, like if we're watching Who's Number One or Fight to Win or whatever on Flow, I'll text Chad because it's always no gi most of the time. Fortunately, we'll catch some gi stuff in there, but I'll go, what the heck did he just do? Like, it was so fast. And so, and that's the other thing. It is very hard to see unless you're in the action, unless you're right there, because it is so fast, especially with those high elite guys,
Oh, yeah. The gi is even more confusing too at the highest level. Cause I mean, you have to rewatch a lot of those matches to see the grip adjustments they make. Pans was a great example of that, because there was some wild entries in some of this stuff. Like Gustavo Batista was doing some crazy stuff off of his De La Hiva that most guys have never seen, where it's almost like a ashigara, like an inside leg lock entry. The sweep off of that is really wild stuff that, like, if you didn't know what you were looking at, you'd be like,
you have no idea.
Yeah.
When I watch Pans, there's a lot of stuff I'm just like, that was awesome, but I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
Because I did watch it. I would be like just switching from mat to mat to mat, and I'd be like, oh, that one's over, let's go to the next one and watch as much, because I try to ingest as much as I can non YouTube. Like, I'll see stuff, and obviously social media and whatever, and I'll look at it, but then I kind of move on. I never try to really pull it in class, because I'm like, that's going to come in time. I'm not worried about it. I just kind of fluff it off and go, that's really awesome, but I really want to focus on what I'm doing right now, what Chad has taught me in class. It's like, I need to stay on that path, not YouTube and go into the corner and going, hey, you ever seen this before?
Yeah. I think watching matches is huge.
I really like that, though.
Not just instructionals, but matches is really good.
Matches are for somebody that's starting out, like that's exactly what you should watch. If you want to watch, I always tell people, like, if you want to watch something, like, pull up, like the most recent highest level tournaments, you know what I mean? If you can find the IBJJF, if you don't have a Flow account, I mean, some of that stuff's on YouTube.
Sure, right.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Because like you said, there's so much content out nowadays. And I think it's good and bad, right? Because it's like, it's good because it's good at our level, at a really high level, because you can take little nuggets of what you see, like the super fight I did, that bow and arrow variation I did.
Yeah.
Very different than like you typically see. And I saw that on like a reel, I think on like TikTok or not, like TikTok or Instagram. But I mean, the variation. So I drilled it for. I mean, it's like you still got to put the work in
for sure.
You still got to make
right, yeah.
But like you have the luxury of doing that after in my case, like 13 years of doing this. Like you can take little things from different places and be like, oh, I'll try that out. And I drilled that setup for probably 3 weeks. And I had, I always put a lot of time and a lot of I'll train every match I'm going into like it's going to be the world finals. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mess around when I say I'm going to compete, like we're going all in. Like I'm living and breathing this, you know what I mean? Because at black belt, it's like, I mean, I don't know what, you don't have no idea what you're going to run into. And that was the biggest difference I found, once I started training. I mean, I think my jiu-jitsu career, it was the middle of my career when I was training like full time with Waterhouse. Like he taught me, how to be technical. He taught me all the, how to dissect things, and he got my brain work. I mean, I think I was naturally kind of going that way. But after I got a black belt, and opened up my own school and, started training my own, and then like seeking out my own training. I'm like, what do I need to get better at this? And training with Chris Kriebel, training with Josh Roller, training with all my guys that are like my highest level guys. Like those guys taught me at the highest level. Like, and I say it to my guys now, like there's a level of violence that a lot of people aren't ready for at that level of right. I mean, everybody thinks it's jiu-jitsu, it's kind of hard. And you don't really like get that intense, like unless you're like, it feels like the first day you walk in as a white belt, like there's that fight. You're like, oh, this is real. But like over the years, everything kind of slows down, especially the better you get at it. But they kind of brought it back up in me. It's like you have to be like technically violent. You know what I mean? And there's a level of it's still a fight, and it just, it was good for my training. It was good for everything. I mean, it kind of like changed the way I looked at things, and, I could take my technical side and like bump it up, and it was good. And I try to tell my guys the same thing. Like, it's gonna shock you. Your first jiu-jitsu tournament is gonna scare you and everything above. You know what I mean?
Sure, right. And you got to have that mindset, like you said, Mike. there is a sense of violence to it, obviously, and you have to have that in your mind, no matter what. Like, you don't have to hurt anybody, but you have to understand that you need to go into that world a little bbit. You have to step into that a little bit. You have to expect it. You have to expect it. Exactly.
A little bit of. I mean, you don't have to you don't have to be malicious. Like, I'm not ever. Right. Exactly. I'm never trying to hurt anybody. I'm trying to submit somebody.
Right.
You know
exactly.
What I mean? I want you to tap. I don't want you to pass out. I want you to tap. I don't want to break your arm.
Right. I
want to submit. I mean, there's still a sport side to it. And that's really,
100%. Yeah.
I forget what we were talking about.
I was just saying, you were just talking about your training and how you shifted into that, that type of training, and you're all in and stuff. And that's a great statement in terms of what we've talked about this. We talked to people about this is, jiu-jitsu puts you in that mind state to be all in, because the consequence if you're not. And you're a hobbyist, not you, I'm a hobbyist, but people out there that are hobbyists, but you have to understand, you do have to put in an effort to overcome just a little bit of that hobbyist, because it's going to be hard. There's going to be a lot of work you have to put into it. You have to have a mindset that there is going to be some pain and some violence to it, and with doing that, it's also a life lesson. I'm going to put all of it in. Chad and I talk about all the time. Like, we joke about all other stuff we used to be involved in, or, bowling. And it's I'm all in, baby. I got 4 bowling balls, got a couple bags, got everything I need. I'm good to go. It's
that was it. That was me. That was me, man.
And that's that helps you in life. Like, you're going to school, you're working in a job. Like, it gives you confidence to take on a new project, to do something. And it says, hey, I'm all in. I'm all in because when I go to the gym, I'm all in because those guys count on me to be all in, so that's kind of a transition in terms of, the BJJ stuff, being in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, martial arts in general. I'm biased now 100% because I have background in other martial arts, but I am 100% biased that Jiu-Jitsu is by far the greatest martial art that you could ever be involved in because of what you do. If you're training at a good place and you're surrounded by good people, you learn to you have to do something that scares you on a consistent basis all the time. You have to constantly put yourself out there, and whether it's at the smallest level where you're just when you roll, go on your bad side, to put your left hip on the mat and say you're right. It's oh, I'm going to get beat up pretty bad, right in front of my coach, and with the guy that's not my rank, or the guy that is my rank, up to competing at a really high level. You know what I mean? It's everything in between there. And it's such an important lesson, it's with big risk comes big reward. And it's you're not always going to come out on top, and that's okay. Yep. But it's just the act of putting yourself out there is everything, for me, it was transitioning into really competing especially as a black belt. It's you're there, all your students are there. There's a live stream. People are watching. It's a lot of pressure, man. Yeah. Yeah. There's nobody else fighting. And there's everybody's filming watching it at that point, right? You know what I mean? And they're expecting magic, and it's here we go. You know what I mean? One person's going to win this, and right. You have confidence that it's going to be you, that you put the preparation in, but there's a chance it's not going to be you. And it's I always tell myself when I go into a situation like that, especially that super fight, it was I prepared myself to I'm the absolute best version of myself I have ever been. Right. I'm in best shape I can be. I'm as mentally sharp as I could be. Everything is right where I got a great game plan. I had a great, everything was on there. If I lose in this state, that's okay. Now I have something to work on, and I can be an even better version of myself next time. There's no reason to get down about stuff like that. And
I have so many people that come into my academy that they always have some kind of story that they like, you know, especially the wrestlers. I'll have wrestlers that come in and, you know, they're runner up at state or something like that, really successful. And so, like, for most people that would say that, but something happened mentally for them and they almost like revert back to that when they start competing. Right. You know, you got to shake them and be like, you're not that person. This is not, you know, let's reinvent you right now. Let's be whoever you were in the past. That's not you now. And I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, is like that, almost like you can resurrect yourself in like such a beautiful way. You can become strong, you can become confident. And you see it in so many people that come in and learn this and have that confidence, you know, whether they're like an ultra competitive person that wants to go compete, or just, you know, somebody who's like, you know, been bullied, or somebody that's, you know, I have a girl that trains with us now. She just started and she's only been with us a couple of weeks, but you can already see her confidence like starting to grow. When she came in, you know, that was her biggest thing. She's like, I walk around and I'm just like, I feel like I'm terrified of, like, you know, my surroundings of, you know, and I'm like, well, you know, let's see what version of you, you know, like mixing up my words, but like, see how different you are just by, you know, coming to this class and gaining this and gaining that confidence. Because moves are moves, you know, right? We can all learn jiu-jitsu anywhere, but like that confidence level, that new version of yourself, you're going to be, you know, I mean, we could wax poetically. It's a jiu-jitsu podcast, right? But it's, there's so many good aspects of it, you know, that we just, a lot of times you don't really think about, but then if you really think about it, it's just like, well, yeah, I see it every day. And that's the best part about it, you know?
Right. And it's going to extend her in general, because not only is she going to gather confidence and grow, as you are already seeing, she's going to look around and see every one of those other women that are in there have done the same thing, and all you guys, and the way that you teach, Mike. And she's going to be like, wow, I'm at the right place. I'm at the right place around the right people that are going to give me confidence and believe in me. Maybe she didn't have that, and she won't walk around terrified anymore. It's not just about learning how to defend yourself. It is a huge aspect, and it's the most wonderful thing, but it also is building that up on another side too. Like you said, that's very cool, man. Good stuff. We have you. Yeah. We've had you for more than an hour, brother. So we won't keep you much longer. It was great stuff.
I got one question for you.
I was going to go ahead, Chad.
Let's go top 5 jiu-jitsu all time. Who's your top 5?
Oh, my Mount Rushmore?
Yes.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
Mount Rushmore is good.
I would say probably so. For me, I'll put him in like top 5 influences on my jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Right? Because it's like, it's hard to, you know, it's
not the who's the best of the best. Yeah, for you.
So I guess for me, the top 5 people that have, like, you know, famous jiu-jitsu guys that have like influenced me, obviously top of my list, I said it before, Rafa Mendes. He's the man. I love his jiu-jitsu. I bummed he retired.
Yeah, he's a Jedi. Legit.
Like a legit Jedi.
It's so funny because probably the other guy on my list right underneath of him was my initial like jiu-jitsu hero. It's Cobrinha.
Okay. Yeah.
And I came up right when the torch got passed to from Cobrinha to Rafa, because Cobrinha was the guy, you know.
Yeah.
And then Rafa came and took him. I was like, oh, and I like viewed Rafa as like the bad guy in there. Like, oh yeah, he was beating. And then I just fell in love with it. It was great. But like probably, yeah, Rafa, Cobrinha. Who else is up on there? You know, like love him or hate him, Gordon Ryan's jiu-jitsu is
you can't argue
beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
He's
like separate from. I can draw a line with him and separate the person from the jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, just what he's able to do, just from a jiu-jitsu standpoint, you know, at those high levels, like, you know, sweeping Buchecha as technically and as clean as he did at that high level is just really incredible. Yeah. So I think I'd throw him up there just as far as, you know, straight technical influence, not to get into any of the personal stuff with him.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you got to put Marcelo on there for sure.
Yep,
I mean, no list is complete without him.
No.
And then, geez, man, I don't know.
How about Tedday?
Oh, well, I mean, then we're getting into, like, you know what I mean? He's the reason
I know.
any of those guys are, you know what I mean? I mean,
right. If he would have not hit some personal issues that he had, you might not know Marcelo, right?
Absolutely.
Like
absolutely.
I think he submitted Marcelo twice back in, whatever days they were. I don't know if it was black belt or not, but
yeah. And he was such a madman too, like signing up for the absolutes and taking those guys down.
Yeah.
And I mean, his passing is the reason people pass the way they do in modern jiu-jitsu. And it kind of revolutionized a lot of jiu-jitsu. I mean, he's unbelievable. You know, it's he definitely make that list too. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll send you some highlights of him, Terry. You probably never watched him yet.
Nope. A few of the names, as usual.
Yeah.
I
get educated on this podcast. Just like everyone out there listening, Terry gets educated too.
It's funny. The list is like my list dates my jiu-jitsu too a little bit, because I mean, like, not my jiu-jitsu, but how I came up, because it's all like 10 years ago. All these guys are like that guy doesn't even compete anymore.
Sure.
Right.
But some of the newer guys though, like I brought his name up earlier, but there's a guy from Atos named Gustavo Batista, I love him. I mean, he's probably one of my favorite active competitors in the gi. He's just amazing. Nice. He's a bigger guy, but he just moves so well. His passing so clean. It's unbelievable, the stuff he does. I really, really dig it. It's cool.
Yeah, I remember we started doing my standing passing basics is X pass, leg weave, knee cut, leg drag, all that stuff, right? So I sent Terry the video of Hoffa at the Hickson Cup. I'm like, dude, it's like he has the contra code for passing.
Oh right. Man, I probably watched that every month for the last 7 years. I literally just sent it to one of my blue belts yesterday, and I was just like, you've seen this, right? And he's like, I don't think so. I'm like, oh man,
it's the greatest. Like,
it's like these are other legit black belts, right?
It looks like he's playing on easy mode.
Right. Well, that's what Chad said. When he sent it to me, he's like, "What do you think?" I was like, "How's that even possible?" He's like, he makes it look super easy, like he's on easy mode, right?
He'll pass your guard, but then reset. Like, right. you didn't recover.
Right. I just moved here. Like, it's like, wait, what? And I would watch it over and over. I kept that clip up. I'm still working from home, so I would keep it on one computer screen, and I would be working on another, and it would be in between, and I would watch it, and then I would work and watch it. I'm like, this is too good. I have to keep this all the time.
It's great. It's great. The videos like that, I mean, that gets me fired. I mean, I watch it. If I watch it tonight, I'll be, everybody
ready to go.
We still going tomorrow morning? I just want to check. You know what I mean?
Right. I've just sent a blast out to everybody. Notification.
Just want to get it. Make sure everybody's on board.
Right. Awesome, man. Cool. Hey, anyone you want to shout out? Obviously, shout out all your social medias, your gym, and then anything else you want. We always tag them in our show notes and everything. That way, everybody knows. And credit come.
Well, you can find us. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. If you're on any of those platforms, Manchak Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. On Instagram, Manchak BJJ. You could check our website out, mbjja.com. That's what we're doing. I will say, shameless plug here. The LimitLess Tape is fantastic. Used it full training cycle this week to give it a full, and
nice.
It was unbelievable. Really high quality stuff, guys.
Thank you so much, man.
I can't say enough good things about it. Hey, held up on my old Crypt Keeper hands the whole time. It was great. They didn't come loose at all. So I mean,
nice. And no residue, and it comes off nice, and it stretches well.
It's great.
It's good. Yeah. Nice, man.
Usually you get the little stringies, and I gotta retape it halfway through, because I mean I'm real heavy with my gripping game.
Sure.
And, it held up great. I was very pleasantly surprised.
Awesome, man.
Sold a couple rolls right after that too. I was like, you guys got to get
out of this. Yes. Awesome, man. We appreciate the support and appreciate everything. Everyone out there that knows, Chad and I started our own tape business called LimitLess Tape. To kind of go play off with Limitless Industries or Limitless Radiocast, as Chad calls it, Limitless Industries, because he's like, if we would have done this, we should have just called it that in the beginning. We just keep putting stuff out there. I was like, well, It is what it is, but appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
There's no shameless plugs on this podcast either. Every guest is allowed to plug anything they want, because the more knowledge that you're dropping on people is what we want, man. Spread the news and spread the word, you know.
You guys are doing it. It's a great thing. Thanks, man. I appreciate the support. I mean, Chad, I appreciate all you're doing, man. It's great. Yeah. I mean, this podcast is awesome, you guys. And you supported me the whole, I mean, we've I think it speaks even more so like what we said earlier, you know, we didn't really know each other outside of, you know, just knowing of each other.
Right.
You know, I think it says a lot about the community where, like, you know, you don't necessarily have to know somebody in this community to support them, you know, because you know right where they're coming from, you know, right where they're at. And I think that just grows the sport. And I'm always, you know, any guys that are closer to him, I'm sending them to him. You know what I mean? I just want, you know, I want people to find jiu-jitsu, you know, and,
exactly.
I want to support, you know, my brothers in jiu-jitsu out here too. So
absolutely.
That's what makes it great. Send people here, send people there, get in, everyone out there, get in, find a gym. If you're down around, I would say Southern Ohio, but in the Wooster area, guys, and you haven't checked it out, go check out Manchak Academy. He'll get you squared away and get you going well. And if you're up in the Stark County area, obviously everybody come into East Coast and we'll get you squared away, and you'll find a family that you never thought you would find. I can tell you that.
Yes, so, absolutely.
Thanks, Mike, for hanging with us, man. We appreciate it so much. Keep doing everything you're doing, training, working hard, and we appreciate you. Cool?
All right. Cool.
All right,
thanks
brother.
a lot, guys.
Yes, thank you. Hey everyone, we hope you enjoyed the show today. Remember, go out there and check out all our sponsors. By supporting them, you support the Limitless Radiocast podcast. It helps us bring you guys content each and every week and keeps us going. Thank you, and we appreciate you for all you do. Limitless Radiocast is brought to you by True Tubes Tattoo Supply. Limitless 10 at checkout for a 10% discount on all your tattoo needs. They have state-of-the-art equipment for everyday needs in the tattooer's life. Check them out. Remember, stay true. Limitless Radiocast is also brought to you by Magic City Brewing Company. Best beer brewed in the hometown of Akron, Ohio. Check them out. Check out RollAmongUs.com. Put in Limitless20 at checkout for a 20% discount on all your fight gear needs. That's gis, lanky gis, rash guards, spats, fight shorts. They have t-shirts and accessories. Check them out. Great place, ran by a great guy. Also, check out BattleBomb.com. Put in Limitless20 at checkout for a 20% discount. You have CBD and non-CBD rub to rub on those aches and pains from hard training, hard work, everyday life. Check them out. Remember, Limitless20 at checkout, BattleBomb.com.